starting us off at number 10 is the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I loved the whole movie franchise. It's one of my favorite movie series of all time. And hello, Johnny Depp, you can't hate him. Now, this ride is one of Disney's most popular ones, and they have so many cool props in it. Apparently, the treasure chest is the same one used in the first movie, not just a prop for the ride. But the treasure chest isn't the only quote-unquote real prop. When the Imagineers were building and decorating the whole thing, apparently they felt that the fake skeletons they used in some scenes didn't look real enough. So naturally, they did what anybody would do and went to their friendly neighborhood mortician for some real human bones. While a lot of these real bones have been replaced by prop bones, apparently there's still some real human remains still hanging around the pirates. And seriously, that is the stuff that curses are made of. They don't call it the curse of the Black Pearl for nothing. But coming in at number 9 is the bellhop ghost. Now apparently the Tower of Terror is a bit more terrifying than expected. Long time ago, it said that one of the employees acting as a bellhop suddenly dropped dead. Like, no explanation, no provocation, nothing. He just died. Since his death, there have been a lot of sightings of a ghostly figure who many believe is that bellhop. Thankfully, he's never hurt anyone, but he does like stopping the ride, making loud noises to freak out the other staff members. I love how he's like, no, the guests should have a fun time, but I want to screw with the other employees. At number 8, we have Mr. One Away. Turns out there are a lot more haunted rides at Disney than you would really expect from the happiest place on earth. More like happiest place in the afterlife. That was lame, you guys. You can attack me in the comments for that, I'll accept that. Apparently, even Space Mountain has a resident spirit haunting the ride. Mr. One Way is described as being a large man with red hair and a red face, and he will often sit beside people who are riding solo. A lot of people don't realize that he's a ghost until he mysteriously just vanishes midway through the ride. But there is one way to tell if you are a bit sus about him while waiting in the line. If you see a large red-faced, red-haired man while waiting to get on the ride, try talking to him about all the new changes at the park, seeing as he's dead, he doesn't have any idea about anything that's happened since the 70s. Bring up a phone. Filling at number 7 slot is the family. This family cannot seem to have a trip to Disneyland without getting some type of nasty stomach bug. On her blog, the mom gave a thankfully not too detailed account of the past 5 times that she and her family have gone to Disneyland, during 4 of which at least one of them got a really nasty bug. Even bringing hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes didn't seem to protect them enough to make it through a trip. Normally, I might consider this a really bad string of coincidences, but with Disney opening back up during everything that's going on right now, I feel like this blog post could have gone a really different way if they decided to go now, and I'm not sticking around for that. Now at number 6 is the Haunted Mansion Part 1. So I actually rode this ride multiple times when I went to Disneyland Paris, cause it was my favorite ride there. I was clearly into some pretty spooky as a child. No wonder. I was made for this channel, clearly. Now, I don't know if this one is technically a curse, but I wouldn't be surprised if it could easily lead to one, or multiple. Apparently, some people love that ride so much they want to stay there forever, and I mean even after they die forever. Yeah, it's apparently pretty common for some people to want their ashes scattered there, and it's become such an issue that the park literally hired people to keep an eye out for it. If there's one thing that's almost sure to cause a curse, it has to be human remains being scattered somewhere that literally has the word haunted in the title. Hello. Coming in at number 5 is the Haunted Mansion Part 2. This one sounds terrifying, if not downright depressing. The Haunted Mansion apparently houses a ghost nicknamed the Crying Child, and there's nothing creepier than a ghost child in my opinion, especially if it's crying. I just hate ghost little children. Sorry, I got really aggressive there. This one is actually a result of his mom doing what we just talked about, which is spreading ashes of somebody who has passed away. The Crying Child's mom apparently spread his ashes at the Haunted Mansion, and now he's left standing at the end of the ride crying, asking where his mommy is for all of eternity. I'm not sure if his mom thought she was doing him a favor by spreading his ashes at the Haunted Mansion, but something tells me he's not too happy about it. At number 4 is It's a Small World. There have been multiple accounts from staff members over the years saying that the characters in the It's a Small World ride come to life at night. And honestly, even though that ride is supposed to be really happy, it has always seemed to be one of the creepiest ones for me. I don't know why. Several employees have sworn that they've seen the animatronic characters blink even after being unplugged, and sometimes they'll even appear in entirely different places than they were the night before. Who knows what those creepy little dolls get up to overnight? I do not want to get trapped in there and find out. You feel me? Filling at number 3 slot is death. This one's not so much a curse, but it does deal with death. Apparently no one can die at Disney parks, not legally anyways. While lots of people have unfortunately had tragic accidents and health issues at the parks, they're always removed from the premises before being declared dead. So technically they didn't die in the parks. Kind of like in Roller Coaster Tycoon when you have your roller coaster hanging over the edge of the neighboring park, so all the guests are just thrown off the ride and die in the other park. This really makes me wonder how many people have actually died at Disney and how many spirits are just wandering the streets and enjoying the rides for the rest of eternity. Now at number 2 is the Seance book. The book in question is located in the Haunted Mansion. Why am I not surprised that the Haunted Mansion has the most curses and rumors surrounding it? Legend has it though that this Seance book used to belong to actual witches way back in the 1300s. Staff members reported having a lot of issues with the book, including the table it was on being flipped over or the book going missing entirely. They eventually had to replace the book with, I don't know, I guess a prop seance book that isn't cursed with centuries of witchcraft, and as far as I know, the swap fixed all the problems they were having, so I mean, Bob's your uncle. And finally, at number 1, we have the ghost of Walt Disney. Now prior to him passing away, whenever he visited the parks, the light in the second-story window of the Main Street Fire Hall would be lit up to tell staff members to be on their best behavior. A boss is here. But after he died, the light naturally was off all the time, until one day it mysteriously lit up again. The worker who was in the room switched it back off, only for it to be turned on again when she turned her back towards it. Now the staff leave the light on all the time to remind the employees and guests that Walt is still at the park and he's watching. Now I'm sure for the guests this seems like a sweet gesture, but to the staff it's probably a bit daunting and haunting. But I'm not a rapper.
At number 10, we have Creepy Log Ride. So this creepy log ride comes out of Beijing Shijingshan Amusement Park. Some people call it fake Disneyland apparently. So the park itself is still in operation, but half of the rides are closed down and there's overgrown vegetation everywhere. Because of that, this log ride feels abandoned, but you can give it a ride yourself. It is pretty eerie though. There are wildflowers and cracked soil on the land around the ride, and all the props and decorations around the track are weathered down. The ride itself is a pretty slow, lazy river water ride, and it's flanked by figurines and other decorations, but honestly it seems like Mother Nature is trying to take over. For me, the creepiest part is the figurines. They have these kangaroos that look like they've seen something that scarred them for life. And all of the animals look like they're just up to no good. And honestly, that's all I can say about that. We're gonna move on. It's kinda creepy, it's just moving so slow. Ugh. At number 9, we have Fantasy Dream Train Ride. So this one is a little more refined, but just wait for it, okay? Fantasy Dream Train Ride is located in Lot World Theme Park in Seoul, South Korea. You start by passing through a clown's mouth and going down a tunnel of light. Already, you start getting Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory kind of vibes. There is slow, cheery music in the background, and the ride enters a dark room with glowing orbs of light that flicker, and this giant lifelike statue of a guy who is speaking over the sounds of crickets or cicadas or some kind of bug. So the music fades out there and it's just you and that giant talking to you. Creepy. Anyways, next is a frog room where high-pitched voices are saying ribbit, which leads to a forest room with these creepy flower things. And so if you think their faces aren't bad enough, when I noticed their mouths moving, I almost jumped out of my chair. These beings' eyes are unmoving, but their mouth bobs up and down just like it's not lifelike at all, but still very cringy. And I didn't mind the bees at the end though, they're just bopping around. But it doesn't end there. There are creepy animals you pass in a town, and then you enter a clown's mouth again to another creepy cheerful room. There is a jelly bean house with mice and a wizard, and then it gets all dark and the music quiets, and then ride goers go back into the hype. It's a lot, honestly. All in all, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the location of a horror movie, because it's just clowny nightmare fuel. Imagine that, just kind of like dark and eerie at night, and you're walking through and you bump into something and it's animatronic that goes, "Hi!" No! But moving on to number 8, Jurassic Jungle Boat Ride. So in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, you can even see that there's people outside the ride gathering to watch. But no, wait, those are mannequins. Except for this guy. This guy from my nightmares. On the ride, you enter through the double wooden doors into a dark cavern. There's a ringing sound and it goes dark. The dino animatronics are lightly lit and come peering at the riders. Animatronics on their own are just creepy, that's my opinion. So this dino that's nodding its head, I don't trust it, okay? I just don't. So this part of the ride that seals the deal is the noise. So the ambiance is haunting, and it's all because of the tech design. There are echoing dinosaur screeches and a low resounding hum with the sounds of nighttime bugs to give you that eerie alone feeling. Then at one point a child is carried away by a pterodactyl too, yeah. And it's slowly without the wings flapping, so it's just gliding through like this. Kind of like a flying squirrel, if you do. It's a pretty long ride too, so if you're up for some creepy dinos, strap in for at least an 8-minute ride. Next, at number 7 is Visa Clown. So this ride isn't quite creepy for the ride itself, but because of the creepy clown, or clowns on it. So at the Aberdeen County Fair, on one of the rides is this creepy looking bugger, and he's holding a child with flashing red eyes, and there are more clowns around the machine. At one point, were clowns like this supposed to be charming?
Scariest ride of all time.
Who would see these faces and think, oh, that's cute for my kid, and the clown's face is just like, no, it's not cute. I'm not outright afraid of clowns in general, no, but this artistic interpretation, just downright creepy, honestly. Plus, with rides at county fairs, you never really know how up to code they are. I fear that, you know? I risk it either way, but you don't really know, I feel. Right? At number 6, we have The Nightmare Experiment. So this ride is in Disney Hong Kong only. It is a Halloween scare house with Disney characters in it. So to name a few that are featured in here, there is the Mad Hatter, pirates from Pirates in the Caribbean, and mutant toys from Toy Story. So your guide to the journey is the ominous professor, and there are shadow beings, dark walkways, and apparently that big baby head from Toy Story. And that's just creepy enough in itself. So they also have people in costumes just like a haunted house.
Hi!
And in this creepy take, the Mad Hatter is in his own personal asylum.
There's a guy just standing there.
Yeah, just show the clip of the baby head again, that's all you need. On to number 5, I Corsari. So this ride in Godland in Italy is a large boat ride with scenes and drops and animatronics. And yes, animatronics. Just like this one. It is a pig that is absolutely jacked and it's having its neck pulled off nearly by a child. So the pig kind of looks like a human in a pig skin suit. It's just not lifelike enough, but like enough that it's just it's uncanny valley, you know? It's ugh. The audio of the ride includes distant shrieking screams of children, creepy music, and all kinds of conversations. So I just feel like we know what we're in for. This dragon-like thing has a face of a person, and I feel like the ride operators have it pointed down because they know it's just not fit for human eyes, much less a child. And hopefully there aren't kids on this ride because they have people hanging from the ceiling as props. As in death, like hung. This one just has creep hitting on all different levels. The face on a dragon, people hanging, creepy music, that weird pig, I can't. But let's move on to number 4 with one I think we all know. It's A Small World. And yes, we know this, you know it would make the list. It's a small world ride at Disneyland. It's a creepy little world, in my opinion. Many people say it's the song itself that is just a source of fear on the ride because it just keeps repeating and it's just too cheery. Yeah, Unnerving, repetitive, feels like it's hiding something, all that jazz. But also, look at the dolls. There are figurines with 1 or 2 predetermined movements, and they look too fake to be real, but also lifelike enough to be unnerving. So, for example, this little Fisher. So it's just swinging up and down trying to get that walrus to do a trick, and it's just taking the realistic part out of life and leaving us with robots that are meant to feel wholesome, and it just feels fake, you know? And a bit creepy. Maybe I'm just creeped out by animatronics too much, I don't know. So let's move on to number 3, It's a Small World knockoff. So this knockoff It's a Small World is in Suzhou Amusement Land in China. So it's another slow moving boat ride like a few others on this list. The music they play is distorted and creepy, and the dolls are worse. So in this one, the dolls look as if they are decaying or as if they are zombified dolls. Also, their eyes are uncomfortably wide, and the dolls, any of the animals, anything, they just look scared. They also have bags under their eyes as if they are being overworked, and also a bunch of their arms are just reaching out to riders as if asking them for help. So the person who posted the video themselves said that the ride smelled like dead carcasses too. And also, just look at the bunny children. Try to tell me that doesn't give off some weird vibes, yeah? Also, last thing I'll point out, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles make an appearance on this ride. For what reason? I'm not sure, but I'm guessing to protect us from the others. Moving on to number 2, Tower of Terror. So the Tower of Terror at Disney World is aimed to be a bit of a scary ride already, and yeah, I would say it works for me, honestly. And yes, there are the ghosts that are planned during the ride, but there is a rumor of a real ghost, the ghostly bellhop. So all of the cast members that work there are bellhops for the hotel. The story goes that one of the bellhops, or cast members, loading in the guests dropped dead on the spot as he was letting them onto a platform. He was loading Platform D, also known as Platform Delta, and is said to haunt the platform on the ride. When cast members have to ride the ride at the end of the night to make sure it runs as it should, they individually ride on platforms A, B, and C, but ride on Delta altogether. Lights would flicker on and off, there could be technical errors, and the cast members would see a figure out of the corner of their eye. Riding together makes them feel a little less creeped out. And so who knows if that is true, and honestly the ride is already scary enough on its own for me. Yes, can children go on it? But I'm afraid. Lastly, at number 1, we have Pirates of the Caribbean, and I need to disclose for this one, I can't handle those skeletons. I just die looking at them. So for this one, I don't care what you think. I can't deal with the skeletons. I couldn't watch the movies when I was younger. I was terrified. So no, I will not go on this ride. There's no way in Sam heck you couldn't get me in line. If you somehow did, I would bail last minute, say I felt sick, and after you finish the ride, you would see me at the end holding a basket of fries and living my best life. That's just how it goes. But let's talk about the ride. There's the creepy Captain Animatronic and someone being dunked and drowned in a well. Captain Jack himself just looks creepy, just swaying side to side. Just all of the animatronics are hitting that uncanny valley for me and really off-putting. Plus the skeletons. I cannot. Okay?
Starting us off at number 10 are the cables. So this one took place at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom on the ride dubbed the Superman Tower of Pride. A young girl was on the ride with a few friends, and as it was getting to the top, the group had a cable snap, looked up and saw a bunch of cables coming towards them left, right and center. The cables started whipping around, injuring the group's faces, and this was when the ride was only 20 feet off the ground. And I feel like I don't know how no one was like, oh, maybe something's wrong with the ride. At that point, no one thought to stop the ride, and so they started being taken higher, and that was when the black smoke and smell of burnt rubber started kicking in. And on a roller coaster, That's just not a good look. It's not a good sign. The girls kept shouting to stop the ride as the cables kept hitting them, even wrapping around their necks at some points. When the girls finally landed on ground, the smell of burning flesh was just overpowering. Turns out one of the girls' feet had been severed off completely, and they managed to reattach her right foot, but her full left leg had to be amputated, and the ride is very much so in operation till this day. Where do these cables come from? How are they falling from the sky and just severing people's feet off? No. Coming in at number 9 is the Texas Giant. Now this ride is located at the Six Flags in Arlington, Texas, and it's this huge hybrid roller coaster that mixes wooden architecture and steel engineering together. Another Six Flags story. Should I be worried? I've never been. Should I just not go? Now the ride drops 14 stories at a 79-degree drop and reaches speeds of 65 miles per hour. So back in July of 2013, a 52-year-old guest at the park decided to go on the ride, but during its descent she was thrown 75 feet from the ride. Can you imagine? I would actually Now on her way down she hit a metal support beam and landed on a metal roof, and then obviously died from her injuries. The ride was shut down immediately after, but reopened after internal investigations found no mechanical issues within the ride whatsoever. The park settled a lawsuit with the woman's family worth approximately $1 million. You know those dreams you have when you're falling and then you suddenly wake up? Just imagine it's not a bloody dream and you're falling off a roller coaster to your death. At number 8 we have the Trio. Kings Island Amusement Park in Ohio opened up back in 1972 and is still in operation till this day. Other than the amusement park, the island also has a cemetery on it in which a little girl was buried after dying at some point in the 1800s. This girl, dubbed Tram Girl or Missouri Jane, her ghost is often seen in and around the Whitewater Canyon ride, just doing, ghostly things, like giggling, splashing water on people who aren't even near the ride, and so forth. Now Racer Boy is another ghost seen around the Shooting Star track at Coney Island. His spirit came with some of the ride's cars when they were relocated to Kings Island, and looks wise he's just a little boy wearing a white suit. Not very harmful, he's not that dangerous. Last but not least is John Harter, aka Tower John, a young man who fell to his death in 1983 whilst climbing the Eiffel Tower at the entrance of the park. How true to size was this Eiffel Tower that this man died after climbing it? I thought it would just be like one of those mini ones. Clearly not. Filling at number 7 slot is the Haunted Castle. So this one's located at the Six Flags Great Adventure Amusement Park in Jackson, New Jersey. Another Six Flags, that's 3 already. I'm worried. I'm not going. Now guests at the park have reported seeing teenagers wearing clothes from the 80s and 90s sitting around the park, but mostly around the Haunted Castle attraction. The teens who aren't real guests are apparently from an accident that took place at the ride back in 1984. 8 teenagers ended up getting trapped inside the ride and died in a resulting fire. Firefighters responding to the scene said they couldn't tell the real human bones from the prop skeletons, which is just a horrific thought. Can you imagine? That's my visceral reaction, when there's just a chill and you're ugh. Now at number 6 is Drop Zone. I love rides like this where it takes you really high up and then basically drops you, making you free fall. It gives me major anxiety in my stomach, but they're so fun still, so I'm just whatever, deal with it, it'll be over in 2 seconds. Either way, this ride's located at California's Great America, and the Drop Zone did not end well for 12-year-old Joshua Smurfat. Joshua was disabled both mentally and physically, but that wouldn't have prevented him from riding safely. Each person was locked in by a shoulder harness, yet somehow on the 224-foot drop down, Joshua slipped out of the harness and fell off the ride, dying instantly. Oh, that gave me anxiety just thinking about that. His mom filed a lawsuit claiming you don't go to an amusement park and leave without your child. You don't leave without your child and then have to plan their funeral. Despite heavy investigation, no one could figure out what caused the accident or how he slipped out of the harness, but the ride is still very much in operation. Whenever I'm on that ride at Wonderland, I'm always making sure, I'm checking, I'm am I in? Am I in? Am I in? I even make sure the clerk's am I in? Am I good? Not taking any chances, honey. Coming in at number 5 is Mrs. Muller. Muller's military horse was the intricate carousel horse that was carved in 1917 by Daniel Muller. The horse was meant to showcase his interest in pre-World War II cavalry mounts, but it's actually known for being the only haunted carousel horse in history. The story goes like this. Apparently after seeing the completed creation, Mrs. Muller fell in love with it, so much so that even after she died, her ghost returned to Cedar Point Carousel just to ride it. She was so infatuated with the horse that her ghost made sure that no one else can photograph the horse or fall in love with it. She's been seen countless times riding the haunted steed, and that's a sentence I never thought I'd say. At number 4 is Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Dubbed the happiest place on earth, we never really hear of anything going wrong at Disneyland, but things do go wrong, my friends. Back in September of 2003, one man died while 11 others were injured while riding the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which I mean isn't even the most adrenaline-inducing rides, but it's one of those filler ones that you just have to go on when you're like waiting in between the better rides, you know what I mean? You guys know what I mean. Either way, during the ride, the open passenger train cars somehow separated from each other and the coaster completely came off its tracks. Riders were trapped while emergency responders were trying to save them, and later investigation concluded that the staff hadn't followed the proper maintenance procedures, and that's why the accident occurred to begin with. You can't sleep on maintenance procedures, you guys. Not at a theme park. Have we not seen Final Destination 3? Filling our number 3 slot is Roller Coaster, and as anticlimactic as that title is, that's exactly what the ride is called. Located at the Lagoon Amusement Park in Utah, the ride's been the site of many tragic accidents. In 1989, a 13-year-old rider stood up in the car as soon as it crested a hill and then fell forward onto the tracks. She was then run over by 2 other cars before falling through the tracks 35 feet to the ground. Earlier in 1934, a 20-year-old was also killed while trying to stand up during the ride, which I don't even know why they were trying to do that. Like, do they not tell you that beforehand? Like, don't try and stand up on the ride, people. And I mean, despite that, you can still ride the roller coaster today. I would just advise to, you know, not stand up. How can you even stand up when they've like harnessed you in? I can barely even breathe at that point, let alone stand up. Now at number 2 is Backward Roll. The Wildcat was a roller coaster located at Bell's Amusement Park in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was April 1997 when the unthinkable happened. The amusement park was extra packed during that period because of a 25-cent ride promotion, and so every ride was basically full every single time. The Wildcat coasters were being pulled to the highest point of the track, but instead of cresting over the top and going over it, it started going backwards at a rapid pace and colliding with the coaster that was waiting. And can you imagine the momentum it would have hit the other coaster, like going all the way? Oh, gotta do the momentum calculations. Now, a 14-year-old boy died and 6 others were badly injured, and because of the promotion, so many people saw the accident take place. The ride was disassembled but then relocated to an amusement park in Maryland and called Avalanche. It's like the roller coaster was like, I never killed anyone, new name, who dis? And finally, at number 1 is the Beheading, which I really never thought I'd want to talk about in regards to a roller coaster, but here we are. Now this one is Final Destination 3 level I swear to God. So back in 2016 at the Schlitterbahn Water Park in Kansas City, 10-year-old Caleb Schwab was chuffed to be finally riding the Verrückt, German for insane. I googled that. The 168-foot tall water slide was Guinness certified as the tallest water slide in the world, but honestly from pictures it looks really shoddily made. The ride plummets down like 17 stories in seconds, going at 70 miles per hour, but this ride should have never even opened. Even during test rides, most of the sandbag dummies became airborne, yet they still somehow swept that under the rug and went through with the ride. While Caleb and 2 other riders were going down in the raft, it became airborne towards the end, causing him to hit his head on one of the metal rods holding the safety net in place above him, obviously leading to decapitation. The water park's owner and the slide's designer were charged criminally for death, yet the water slide continued to be operational for a full 2 years after the accident before being dismantled for good.